and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who now knows how to pronounce Curacao. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I will take your word for it and not say it right now, and let you be out there saying that we know how to pronounce it.
And I should admit, I also did not know how to pronounce it until I researched it a little bit, ready for our US versus Curacao preview.
My point's simply that I think we went to one website and heard one person pronounce it, and we were like, yeah, that's it. So we may still be wrong.
I checked multiple links. I checked multiple links.
All right.
Later in today's show, we will be talking about the US men's national team versus Curacao Gold Cup quarter-final. But first, there were two Women's World Cup quarter-finals today.
There were.
On a Saturday, which means no days off for us.
Indeed. I'm assuming we all had Netherlands-Sweden as our World Cup semi-final?
Oh, yeah, definitely. When I filled my bracket out before the tournament, I had Germany and France going out in the quarter-finals.
Obviously.
For sure.
Yeah, Australia not even making it that far. Yeah, totally.
Wow. Yeah, it's a big deal, right, that it's Netherlands-Sweden in the semi.
It is indeed, because I believe that means they both go to the Olympics, because European qualifying is weird.
Yep. So, if people don't know, Olympic qualifying for the UEFA Nations is whoever gets the farthest in the World Cup. Netherlands, Sweden, and because England are there, but there's Great Britain is what goes to the Olympics. I didn't realise this. There was some agreement between England and the other FAs for England to be the official, we'll try and qualify through the World Cup team for Great Britain.
We'll try and qualify through the World Cup team.
There's going to be a whole argument next of does it just become the England team, coached by Phil Neville, that just wears the Great Britain jersey and plays at the Olympics? Or do you pull in Kim Little, Jess Fishlock, all those players that you can? Whatever players Northern Ireland have. I couldn't name a Northern Irish
I believe he
player.
said today that he aimed to bring in other players if it was possible. So we shall see how it develops, but we'll see if everybody wants to be part of that or not wants to be part of that.
I'll admit, I'm a little excited about that.
I am too.
Because it's been so long. I mean, 2012 we did it, but I thought it was a one-off, so it's exciting to have it actually happen properly again.
And that felt like a one-off. It felt like we're just going to do this. This time around, though, I do wonder, I love that we're talking about England somehow. I do wonder, like, if you've kind of had the success that England have had at this World Cup with the squad they've had, do you then bring in like other players who are like Kim Little is an amazing midfielder, obviously, but then she's potentially displacing somebody else who's been there. It's a strange situation that I'm sure Phil Neville will have to find a way to navigate.
Here's my guess. I'll bet the Scottish FA put pressure on their players to not accept the call-up because, as I understand it, I'm not going to argue with them, but they're very invested in the idea of remaining independent nations within FIFA and not giving any inch to the idea of a Great Britain national soccer team. This is what's happened in the past, right? So I bet the Scottish FA will say, "Hey, Kim Little, please don't accept any call up," and then that will probably end it.
This is a weird question to ask that you may not know the answer to. If you had to guess, is there one of the like home nations federations that would be more likely to accept than others? Like in the past, I think like Wales did, and like Ryan Giggs was the captain.
That's the answer. Wales are more likely, just because they've done it in the past,
but more so than Northern Ireland.
I mean, I guess it's just Northern Ireland don't have that many players, so they might even just be happy to be asked.
Yeah, happy to. We'll send you like a trainer.
It's an even bigger political issue in Northern Ireland, right?
Yeah, true.
So there's that element to it.
Oh, is there an issue there? I didn't know.
There is.
Oh, okay.
We definitely should not delve into it.
No, you don't want to go in depth on the troubles.
I do not.
Okay,
I do not. All right, so we should get to.
I just want listeners to know how uncomfortable even hinting at going into that made Daryl.
Well, you talk to a man who grew up in Birmingham and also lived in Ireland.
There you go.
So I'm sort of very familiar with all the ins and outs. And I find the best thing is to say nothing.
Really? You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to an easier topic potentially to discuss, Italy-Netherlands.
Italy-Netherlands, the World Cup quarter-final. It finished 2-0 to the Netherlands. And because it's the weekend, we're not going to spend like 25 minutes on a big tactical breakdown. Let's just talk about the goals.
Yes.
So 70th minute, my friend, Miedema, I was a big backer of her coming into the tournament, specifically because she's so calm and rarely celebrates. Gets her head to a free kick, makes it 1-0 to the Netherlands.
She does. If I were giving advice to Sweden, who obviously the Netherlands will be playing, it would be to maybe practice your set piece defense, because both of these are from set pieces, both of these from free kicks into the box.
Yep. Yeah, 2 goals from, as Alexi Lalas always says, set pieces. Then he adds a third one. Don't know why. There's only 2 in this game.
That's why. It's usually in relation to this game.
So it's Miedema with the header. It's Spitzer takes the free kick. But I want to talk about how that free kick was won.
Sure.
Because it was, I think, Netherlands' actually star player who maybe doesn't get enough spotlight, because we always talk about the front 3, Danielle van der Donk. She has the ball over on the left wing and she's shielding it. Gama, the great Italian defender, is behind her. I don't know how she wins the free kick. I'm still slightly puzzled by this.
I mean, it's a lot of physical defending where she's trying to hold the ball up. Gama is trying to put the pressure on her. So there is that contact, and I think the referee is inclined to let that go. But as we've seen time and time again, not just in this tournament, but like generally speaking, put the hands in the back, it's going to be a call.
That's
and
what
I think
Gama
it's because
does.
Gama, even just like a light touch on the back, it still looks like both hands are there. It looks like the elbows are extending, and at that point, the referee is always going to give that as a foul.
All right, so Van der Donk wins the free kick. She doesn't take it though, right? I think she's about to take it quickly.
She's about to take it,
Doesn't Gama kick it away?
She does. And I'm going to guess Van der Donk says something to her because Gama then pursues her, has to be separated by the referee, and then continues to have some words.
There was a back and forth.
There
was definitely a back and forth.
But actually, strangely, to the point you were kind of making there, I think maybe Gama kind of messes this up a little bit because if she doesn't get into it with Van der Donk, maybe Van der Donk does take it quickly or doesn't take it as well as Spitze does. But because there is this delay, Spitze ends up serves in, I'm going to say, a perfect ball for Miedema ahead.
So it's in swinging because she's right-footed. And it's just behind the Italian defensive line, but way too far away for the goalkeeper to come get it. And it's really inviting.
I mean, that's the sign that the goalkeeper is like at her 6-yard box, and just Giuliani backpedals completely when that ball is served in because there's no chance she's going to get to it because it's low, it's in swinging, and it's got a lot of pace behind it. So I think that was really smart. What I didn't think was so smart was, I don't know why, but this always bugs me, is so the free kick is maybe 30, 35 yards from the end line?
Yeah. And very wide left, right?
Why don't teams just stand at the 18? I do not get this.
Will you explain what is the argument for standing at the 18 versus why not pick the optimal spot? What's so good about standing on the 18-yard line?
Sure. So you're trying to hold the basically high offside line on the free kick, and so that's what the Italians are doing here. But what I never understand, because I guess the idea is it's more space for the the attacking team to run into, but that makes it maybe theoretically harder, I guess, to get on the end of a ball but staying on side. But what makes more sense to me is drop to the top of the 18, and then you have an actual line to hold where everybody knows.
Use the line as your guide to whether you know that if you're in line with your defenders or not. If you know everyone's standing on the same line, then we all know where we are. You don't even have to look across. If you look down, you know you're in the right place.
Exactly.
Right?
But on top
of that, it's easier to coordinate.
It is, but also it's not as though the offside line is necessarily blown here. So it's not even just that it's easier to keep the offside line. It's just that if you're that much further back, when that ball's served in, it has to be even better, even much better hit, betterly.
It's even much better.
There we go. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's going to probably either be collected by the goalkeeper or it's going to be headed clear because you have a smaller area to aim at.
Yeah.
So I just don't quite get why they did that, aside from maybe they just didn't think the delivery would be that good, or maybe that's just what they've practiced, but it never quite makes sense to me.
And so they end up standing 2 yards ahead, so they're about 20 yards from goal, which I don't think is enough to really gain an advantage for what you lose by not having the line.
Yeah.
And there's no obvious error, right? There's no Italian defender like Sam Mewis did against who did we play? France. There's no obvious defender who messes up and drops too deep and breaks the offside line. I think it's just a really clever run from Miedema, and I think it's combined with the fact that Italy are not man marking.
Right.
They're essentially zonal marking, but just concentrating on standing in a straight line.
Yes.
Which I just think is not enough. It's not aggressive enough in terms of attacking the ball when you've got sneaky players like Miedema.
Mean, you literally can't attack the ball because you have a higher line than I would say you need to. You have to drop in to try to head that ball clear. So you're literally retreating to then go and try to attack the ball, whereas all the Dutch have to do is attack the ball. And I think that's where it doesn't make sense, but it's also then creates a little bit of chaos because you can see, I think Gama is paying attention to Miedema. She's trying to maybe stay with her, not necessarily one-on-one mark, but not lose her. But then
it's like Miedema runs and then runs into Gama's zone. Slightly, right?
But then goes out of that zone, and then sort of Gama has to stop and do what she does, which is track back but stay in her spot. But then no one else really picks up Miedema, and that's why she's able to kind of get to the ball first, and then has a great directional header to put it into the back corner.
It's a really good header,
really is.
And then she even almost celebrates. She lifts her arms briefly. Yeah,
almost.
She was inspired by Rapinoe to at least lift her arms.
Yes. Yeah, there you go. So that's good.
I love her calmness, her coolness.
That's fair. You should.
Nothing matters. It's fine. She's a nihilist, maybe.
The biggest mistake she made was not scoring the second goal. I think that's what really...
Why is that?
Because, I just want her to get another goal. I want to see her celebrate even more, but she doesn't.
We'll talk about the top scorer race later in today's show. The second goal comes 10 minutes later, and it is the defender, Van der Gracht, is how I'm going to pronounce it. I probably overdid the but Van der Gracht scores with her head.
She does.
From a free kick.
Yes.
The way that the Netherlands win this free kick, I think, is maybe more interesting than the way they won the first free kick. Fair to say?
Yeah, because we go back to Van de Donk, your preferred player, I think, for the Dutch team, aside from me, Dima.
Yeah.
But we talked in the preview for this game, I believe, or the review of their last game, about how she seems to be the pressing trigger.
Yeah.
That she steps out and goes running at people when she wants to.
And sometimes she just goes freelance. She just goes that kind of solo pressing mission.
Yeah. And here, it's a Italian goal kick. It's taken short to Guagny, the left back for Italy.
Yeah.
Berenstain, who's subbed in for Shanice van de Sanden, puts pressure on, gets beat. But I think that kind of pressure and slowing down what Guagny wants to do allows the Dutch to get a little bit closer.
Yeah.
And then Van de Donk comes flying in.
Yeah.
And basically, I can't remember if is it Van de Donk who dispossesses Guagny?
No, I think maybe Berenstain or someone else dispossesses Guagny by just popping the ball loose.
Yeah.
But Van de Donk is there to pick up the popped ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and
The ball wasn't actually popped. It didn't go flat or anything.
Yeah, and then it ends up with another foul because then Italy had stepped forward because it's a goal kick. Now suddenly they're in a state of transition. They could be countered upon or are very vulnerable. So you have the foul from, I believe it was Sabatini, who picks up the yellow as well. But it gives the Dutch a free kick in a very dangerous position again.
And once again, they take it. They basically drive it to. Is it? It's Spitzer again, right?
Yep.
She drives it to the far post.
Yep.
And Van der Gracht, who's pretty tall, I think she's 5'10", is there, and she's matched up with Guagny, who is not so tall. And it's essentially just like Guagny doesn't lose her.
No.
She's with her the whole time, but Van der Gracht's just bigger and better in the air. Right, so then it's another good header past the Italian keeper. Doesn't he go through her hands slightly, through Giuliani's hands?
I think both of them like hit Giuliani's hands, but it's because she's sort of having to slide over and then try to make a play off of two very good headers.
Yeah.
The second one more powerful, the first one more placement. I can't really fault her for that one. And to your point, I don't really fault Guagny either because she's just doing what she can. She's got hands. She's like doing everything she can short of fouling Van der Gracht. It's just you've got a little bit of a size difference there, and one's attacking, one's defending.
I like your final pronunciation. I think was the right balance.
I appreciate
there
that.
was just enough in there.
But I should say, even with the second goal, I appreciate that. It did feel like as soon as the Dutch scored, Italy were more than in a lot of trouble. It felt like they were sort of knew what had happened. I think their whole game plan was to defend, frustrate, and maybe get one, but it never felt like Italy were then going to take it to the Dutch and find a way through.
I have a Dutch question for you. I'll ask it in English.
Okay, that's good.
So there's a semi-final coming.
Voetbal.
The pattern for the Netherlands has been Shanice van der Sanden starts on the right as part of that famous front three, right? Van der Sanden, Miedema, then Lieke Martens. And it really hasn't produced all that much. No. And I think it's become a little predictable in terms of she's just going to try and get to the end line and cut it back. And I think defenders know what's coming.
Yeah.
Every time the Dutch have won the game, I think, like especially in the recent rounds, it's because Berenstain has come off the bench, replaced her, and maybe done a little bit better.
Yeah. It's gotten to the point
including
where
like winning the ball back for this second goal.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, she doesn't win the ball; she gets beat. But I take your point. But I think like it has gotten to the point where I see Van de Sanden when they do the hydration breaks near the end. She's always kind of like up and cheered everybody up, and she's definitely a good locker room presence. But it has that feel of like I don't know why I focus on this, but I do wonder if there's that feeling of like I haven't really done that much in terms of like actual contributions. So
this is my question I was getting to is if you go into the semi-final now, if you're the Dutch, do you think maybe we just start Berenstain, or do we think like this pattern of just having Van der Sanden not quite do what she was hoping to do, but then we replace it with Berenstain, that's working, so let's just stick with what works?
That would be my guess. Stick with what brung you. But also because even if she's not...
Dance with the one what brung you, but switch her out 30 minutes before full time.
That's it right there, because...
That's not a good prom strategy.
The dancing opponent is tired at that point? I mean, that's what I would say is like if you're going to have her run and cause problems and push Sweden further and further back and make them pay more attention to a very fast winger who can obviously deliver a good ball, then maybe you wear them out and bring in Berenstain. I just think I looked at their statistics. Berenstain had a couple better performances statistically, but overall I think hasn't done enough to. It's not like she comes in and scores a goal, gets an assist, creates a bunch of chances. It's roughly the same with Van de Sanden, I think getting one more assist.
I just feel like Berenstain has like a couple more moves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's more likely to do a step over and go the other way than Van der Sanden is. But maybe it's good to wear the left back down and then bring on the moves.
Yeah. And there's also the age-old question of like, do her moves look more successful because she's playing against a tired defense because of who was there previously?
All right. Should we move on to the day's second quarter final? This is the big surprise, right?
Yep.
Germany-Sweden. You kind of would expect that Germany, number 3 team in the world, would win this. They took the lead and then lost 2-1 to Sweden.
Yes, and it was a Germany team that like you could create a narrative either way. If they had won this game, it would have been, oh, the team that hasn't conceded any goals continued to find a way through, and like we're very German in finding a way to make something happen. But it was also a German team that have, since the very first game against China, failed to impress, and we haven't seen them sort of take a game and completely dominate it from start to finish.
And centre-backs have looked a little wobbly in every game, including the first game.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there was a couple of opportunities for China, I believe, in the first game, where German centre-backs made a couple mistakes. Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, I think you see that come to fruition here, where it felt like Germany were trying a couple different things. They had some rotation. Marchand comes back into this game at halftime, having missed the last few with a broken toe. But like it felt like that aside, you saw Germany doing some questionable things. I think expecting Sweden to be a bit more defensive, a bit more bunkered.
Yeah.
And they weren't.
Well, let's talk about those questionable things, because I think you talked about the narrative. Vos Tecklenburg made a major decision in her lineup that pays off with the goal and then doesn't pay off later on.
All right.
So the thing she did is Alexandra Popp, the goal scorer for Germany, does not play up front in this game. She plays defensive midfield, which we know she can do because I've seen her drop in other games towards the end when they're defending a lead, and it's been impressive. But for some reason in this game, Alexandra Popp does not start up front. She starts defensive midfield, and Schüller and Lina Magul, who's more of a midfielder, start up front. Yep. And my only thought is maybe it's because Popp is great in the air. She's got a lot of goals with headers, right? But you're up against Nilla Fischer and Sembrant, and they're great in the air. And maybe there's just a thought that it just won't work. Like Popp can't beat these two in the air, so let's not go for the aerial bombardment. And then also, didn't we notice against Chile that maybe Fischer and Sembrant are a little bit slow, so maybe you send up Schüller, who's pretty quick, and Lina Magul we know is fast and energetic, and you just think, all right, instead we're going to send pace versus these two centre-backs and see if it works.
Right. But this is the problem that like you have when you have that star player like Popp is, but then does it really make sense to play her, or is this a game where maybe you do sit her and you make that gutsy decision and you bring in an actual midfielder? Because
so if you're going to do it, just drop her altogether rather than find a spot for her in midfield.
Exactly, because to your earlier point, yes, she's a holding midfielder, but I feel like it's worth clarifying that Germany are on a 4-4-2, so it's not even that it's like a 4-1-3-2 and she's just tasked with sitting deep. I mean, that's what she does. But there's also times when she does kind of step out a little bit, but then there's this big space, and it's not as though it's her natural position. It's not as though it's a thing that they've trained from beginning to end of this tournament. So it felt in moments like they were kind of trying to figure it out on the fly, and there's some other substitutions in there, and there's a winger becoming a fullback, and it felt like too much experimentation with the idea of, but we're Germany, we'll eventually find a way through, and in this game they didn't.
And there's actually a Bill Clinton third way, which would have been start Popp on the wing.
Yep.
Which is where she used to play when Germany had those, I forgot their names now, but really famous strikers that she couldn't displace. She would play on the wing a lot. So maybe do that instead of playing a defensive midfield.
Yes.
All right. Here's my argument for why it works to begin with. Lina Magul scores the goal.
She does.
By using her pace to arrive late and surprise the Swedish defenders. I mean, that's almost... Vos Tecklenburg must have been sitting on the bench thinking, I'm a genius.
Yeah, I mean, because it's not even like necessarily high pressure from Germany, but it's just a bad giveaway from Eriksson, the Swedish left back.
Yeah, it's a horrible giveaway.
It is. I would say intercepted by De Bruyne, but it's basically passed straight to her. Yeah. And I think because it is passed right to her, she's able to just take that first touch and put Sweden right back into pressure. And I think that's why you have 4 different Swedes kind of collapse onto Brits. Yeah. All of them focused on like, oh no, we're caught. This isn't good. But because of that, you have massive amounts of space open up, and that's where
Magul,
thank you, is able to get in there and basically just completely be undetected.
Because so the key defender is Nilla Fischer. She's the last one to step out towards De Bruyne as De Bruyne is dribbling at Sweden. Yeah. And what's amazing is when Fischer steps out, there's no threat from Lina Magul. She's so far away, but she sprints so hard, so fast, she's so energetic that she actually exploits the space that Fischer leaves behind, and Fischer didn't even know that she was going to get punished for it.
No, she didn't. She didn't. And I mean, and it's also Sembrant, the other center back, has tried to make a play on De Bruyne and has followed her. So then you have both center backs like stepping to De Bruyne, and it really is one of those weird, like the 2 fullbacks stay about 5 yards deeper, both together. The 2 center backs step higher, so there's a lovely pocket of space if you're an attacker, which Magul is.
Oh, and quick shout out to Hoot, who dragged Eriksson out wide immediately after she gave the ball away, so prevented Eriksson from making up for her own mistake and cutting it off at the source.
Yep.
I want to talk about Magul's finish as well.
Sure.
First touch, she kind of pops it up. Second one, she does like I don't know what you call it, like a scissor kick or a side volley. Yep. It's just really... It's weird, but it's really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. I mean, not a great first touch, definitely not intentional, but is able to finish it, so that's all that matters.
Right?
Yeah.
Make up for it. Not long later, 6 minutes later, because Magul scores in the 16th, Jakobsen equalises for Sweden in the 22nd, and it's a nice-looking goal for Sweden, kind of. It's just a long ball out of the back that Jakobsen runs onto. It's an absolute horror show from Germany's defense.
It is. And there is a slight extenuating circumstance here of, if you go back and watch this, the way the shadows of the players are on this field, it makes it very clear that this long ball from, I believe, Sembrant, who gets the assist, it is played directly into the sun. So that, or like if you're trying to defend it, it's like the ball.
She keeps it really high.
She did. If you're trying to defend that, the ball is basically where the sun is. Okay. So I think that's why Hegering isn't really able to make as clean of a play. Really any play, but she tries to make a play that goes right over her head.
What happens? She's not even challenged by what's the Bernstein?
Blackstenius, I believe.
Blackstenius. She's not even challenged by Blackstenius, right? Hegering takes a step back. She's got a free header essentially, and just straight up misses it. Yep. So sun in face is the only possible explanation, right?
Yes,
she can't be missing headers that badly.
No, because we went back and and it's basically like Sembrant to, I believe, Sager. Sager drops it back to Sembrant, and then it's the long ball, and we froze it there. And Germany are marked up. They have good defensive shape. Right. They seem to, and I think it's a combination here of Hegering thinks she can make a play, and then I genuinely think loses the ball in the sun. And then the left back for Germany, Simon, I don't know which one it is.
It's going to be Simon if it's German. Also because that's what the commentator said, and they've probably got their pronunciation
sheet. There we go. I literally have no idea what she's doing here.
No, so here's what happens. Simon is marking Jakobsen, right? Jakobsen is the right winger for Sweden.
Who's calling for the ball, it should be
calling
noted.
For the ball and is the intended target of Sembrant's ball, right? Simon is...
Either that or a Blackstenius flick on, but it's always going to be going to Jakobsen eventually.
But she's the right winger, Simon's the left back, they're marked up. It's like everything's like the way it should be in soccer, right? The left back's marking the right winger. Jakobsen starts to make an interior run towards the centre to get on the end of this long ball. But as she starts stepping, Simon just goes to Simon's left.
Yeah.
She just goes out as if there's another player out towards the touchline that she's worried about. We looked, there's an angle where you can see the entire field. The only person out there is the assistant referee. There's no right back overlap or anything. There's no reason for Simon to be running out in that direction. Normally on this show we always say, why is she doing that? And then we will find the reason, right? We've watched this a billion times. I cannot find the reason why Simon does this.
No, I mean, I at first I thought maybe she's going to mark somebody, but to your point, the closest Swedish player on that flank is Glass, the right back, who is playing as a right back.
Yeah.
Then I thought maybe it's she thinks it's going to be a long ball. They're just going to deal with it routinely, so she's spreading wide to help reestablish possession and give some width. But even then, you haven't reestablished possession, and she also doesn't tell anybody that Jakobsen is making that run across, which is the most unforgivable moment. If you're not going to track them because you're the left back and you want to stay on your side, I get that. But you still would expect her to pass word along that there's a runner going through, especially because they are... As we said, Germany are in good defensive shape, and they're all kind of trying to step up to block off midfield passing options. But it is still then 1v1 defending for Simon and for Hegering. So I think then you need to have some sort of communication to know that everybody's marked, and in this case they don't, and in this case Sweden capitalize.
And here's my guess: Hegering will get all the blame.
Yep.
And I guess Simon will mostly go under the...
She ran out of the shot, man.
Because she ran out of the shot, but also because people just notice the big misplays more than they notice the failure of marking and bad decision-making, and then you're not in the final shot.
This is true.
Yeah.
It is also true to your earlier point that I think Sweden maybe built this into their game plan, that they had some questions about Germany's two center backs, maybe about their ability in the air, about their ability to maybe step and win balls, because we see Sweden try this a couple of different times. They go for those long, direct balls from their defense to their attack and really put Germany under pressure. And they don't always, outside after this one, it's not like they then kind of deal with it completely for the rest of the game. There are
panicky moments still, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it was a smart approach from Sweden, which is all the more confusing because, again, as you said, Pop is there to kind of sit back in and win headers. And I think we start to see her sit even deeper, especially in the second half, because there were moments where we were like, where's Pop? Why is she not involved in anything? And she was,
I think when they're in possession, that's why they're trying to have a back three and maybe get the fullbacks really high and push on and push on and push on.
Interesting choices.
Yeah, well, in the 48th minute to start the second half, there's Sweden's winning goal, right? It's Blackstenius after a cross, after a header. But to me, the key for this, it involves Alexandra Pop.
Okay.
There's a ball from, it's Eriksson, the left back, who is able to drive forward a little bit. But she finds, from the left back spot, getting towards midfield, she gets behind Germany's midfield to find Aslani in what they call zone 14, right? The attacking midfield zone. And literally between the lines of the defence and the midfield, Alexandra Popp has failed to cut off the angle. And Asllani snuck in behind, and Eriksson finds her with that pass.
To clarify, are you saying Asllani is the one who snuck behind the midfield, between the midfield and the defence? Right.
Yeah.
Because I think...
Don't you speak?
Well, just
or
because...
Did I just say too much too fast?
Well, I wanted to make it clear that it wasn't Eriksson who got between the lines, because that's the kind of key moment here, is that Eriksson gets that ball, does, I think, drive forward to get bypass some of the German midfield.
Because Hoot isn't there, because Hoot's made an interior forward run.
Exactly.
So suddenly there's a little gap where Eriksson can advance with no pressure.
But you're absolutely right. And again, I think this goes back to a lack of positional familiarity for Popp, that she should have known. Step forward 3 yards. Now that ball to Asllani is completely blocked off, and now you're kind of forcing Eriksson to continue to dribble one way, and then you can get closer and closer, and then eventually you either push her outside or you win that ball. But because I think she's not sure what to do and she doesn't want to get beat or get exposed, she kind of holds shape, and that leaves that passing option open. And now because she's holding, the ball goes to Asllani, and Germany are in a lot of trouble.
They really are, right?
And strangely don't seem to know it, which is the thing that stood out to me, is that when that ball goes to Asllani, you would expect... I mean, Asllani is one of the best creative midfielders, I think, in this competition. I've been really impressed by her every single game. And you would expect Germany to then be like, oh no, the one person who we don't want to have the ball in space in front of the goal has the ball in space in front of the goal. We should make a really aggressive play. And instead, they're all pretty much jogging. Jennifer Marchand, who comes on at halftime, is
from injury.
Maybe the one who should have made the most aggressive play, and really never breaks pace of a maybe 60% jog to get back.
3 minutes into her comeback, right? She's probably still feeling it out maybe a little bit.
Yes, and complaining to the referee about a lack of a foul given further up the field. Yeah. But it just, those moments of sort of lackadaisical defending combined with maybe a lack of familiarity with what's being asked of them, I think that really come back to bite Germany, but especially in this sequence.
So the defenders do kind of try and do their job, right? They start to swarm Asllani. She does a clever job of letting them come to her and then laying it out wide. Is it Jakobsen who's out there again? I'm really impressed with Jakobsen every time I see her. I think she's dangerous down that right wing. She essentially just drives past. It's not Simon anymore. It's Gvin is playing left back. Simon came off with an injury towards the end of the first half.
Gvin switched sides.
And Gvin switched sides. So this is 3 minutes into Gvin switching sides, which is maybe part of this.
Another change for Germany.
Another change, moving all the pieces around. So Jakobsen just drives to the end line, crosses it back post, and is it Rolfo gets the header?
It is.
Yeah,
and it's a great header from Rolfo, because about halfway through the ball reaching her head, the entire near side of the goal from Rolfo's perspective is wide open. But by the time the ball gets to her, the German defenders have slid over. Goalkeeper's in a good spot. Schultz is in a good spot. And really, if she hits that near post, it's an easy, just caught save. Yeah. But what Rolfo does that I think is so smart is he gets a lot of power behind it, but heads it back across goal to the back post. And so if you are Schultz, who's sliding over, now you have to completely change direction, and it makes it harder for you to get a full spring, to get a really powerful hand or punch that ball clear. And instead, she's only able to get her left hand palm to it and just kind of keeps it out of the goal, but puts it back in play. Yeah. And then you are able to calmly finish if you're Sweden. Yeah,
if you're Blackstenius, right? You get the winning goal that sends Sweden through to the semi-finals of the World Cup. Wouldn't have guessed this after the loss to the US.
I would not have either. And based on the
I would have guessed them to just fall against Germany, basically.
Yeah. I'm not trying to look past England, because I think that's going to be a very, very difficult game. And I'm actually kind of worried that the United States, having gotten past France, are going to be a little bit now that's it. We can make our way to the final. But if it did feel like once Sweden took this, or equalized, I think I told you this off air, I had this flash of it's going to be Sweden-US in the final, isn't it? That's how it's going to be. And then it's still a revenge game for the Olympics, but also maybe for the group stage if you're Sweden. But we'll see how it goes.
With teams playing their first choice 11.
Yeah. But before that happens, the United States first has to beat England.
Yes, they do. I've got to say, I've come to to the idea of this game that I'm just going to enjoy it.
Yep.
And I'm going to feel slightly smug in the fact that I'm going to have a team in the World Cup final.
There you go.
No matter what. It's kind of great.
Friend of the show, Ira Jersey, did email me, I think independent of you.
Oh, interesting.
To let me know that I should remind you that though the final draft of the Declaration of Independence was agreed upon on the 4th of July, I believe it was initially proposed on July 2nd, and that's the date that John Adams wanted to be the Independence Day, July 2nd, not July 4th, which is when the U.S. is playing England. So, historically, we like to defeat England on July 2nd.
Oh, you're welcome to try. Yeah. We will be previewing that game. We'll probably do a preview on Monday, ready for the game on Tuesday, July 2nd, as you mentioned.
Indeed. We're going to do also a little bit of a preview of the United States men's team Gold Cup knockout round, quarterfinal match against Curacao.
Good job.
There we go. But first, we should talk about today's sponsor, FBref.
FBref. You've heard us talk about FBref. It's FBref.com. It's the football reference website. It's worth mentioning, FBref did they bought a lot of ads specifically during the Women's World Cup. So in many ways, if you want to support FBref, you should do so because they've kind of funded our World Cup coverage.
They have.
Right?
Yeah. 100%.
We would have had no other ad schedule today, but FBref are funding us coming in on a Saturday to do this quarterfinal review.
But they've also done a really nice job of keeping the stats for the Women's World Cup front and center. So you can kind of go there because I guess the idea being that that's the biggest competition happening. So you go there and you can kind of find those stats easily. You can get individual match reports with individual statistical breakdowns of those games so you can know who did what and when.
One thing I noted from the Sweden-Germany game is Jakobsen. She got the goal, obviously. We didn't really talk about her finish, right? She sort of nicely just took a touch, went wide, and then found the far post back across Schultz. She got 6 crosses in during this game.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
What did you make of that one?
I think it just means she's a really good winger who always makes enough space to cross.
Is that why you said earlier that you were impressed by her? Is it because you saw that stat?
No,
you're like, she's doing stuff.
In the previous game, I just saw her turn on the jets a lot.
Okay.
And she's got wheels.
All right.
She's got wheels and crosses. Yeah.
So you can use FBref to get those match report individual details. If you don't want to use it for the Women's World Cup, you could also use it to, say, get background information on Curacao players. Because
you know what you did?
Yeah, because it's a nice way of, if you put in the individual player's name, for example, Jafar Arias, with a lot of other sites...
Forward for Curacao?
You got it. With a lot of other sites, you have to click through, and then you have to figure out how many games they played, and then how many of those games did they start.
Yeah.
With this one, the first thing you'll see is the previous season, 33 appearances, almost 2,000 minutes.
Yeah.
So that tells you right away, he played a lot.
Where did he play those 33 appearances?
He made those 33 appearances for FC Emmen, I believe it is, which we had to look up to figure out what that was because we don't know enough about the Dutch league.
It's Eredivisie top flight, right? So that's kind of impressive that he started 33 games last season in the Eredivisie top flight. That makes him one of the sort of more full-time professional serious players in the Gold Cup.
It does. It certainly does. We'll talk more about...
Just a little taste of our Gold Cup preview of Curacao,
I was going to say, they've got a lot of those players. But first we should say, once again, that today's show brought to you by FBref.
I had one more stat.
You've got more stats.
The top scorer stat.
Of course.
It's been updated, obviously. We now have a 4-way tie at the top of the top scorer chart. I'm looking at FBref here. 5 goals for Sam Kerr, who's obviously out, so no more goals. Megan Rapinoe, Ellen White, and Alex Morgan.
Alex Morgan topping with assists.
Yeah, she would have the tiebreaker right now. She has 3 assists. None of the other players have any assists except Megan Rapinoe, who has 2 assists.
Ellen White's too selfish. That's what I'm hearing.
And three of the only 3 remaining active players with 5 goals will all be playing in the same game on Tuesday, July 2nd.
That's not bad.
Yeah, so that could decide the top scorer race, right?
If you had to bet right now, who gets it?
Oh, Ellen White's going to score a hat-trick.
I like that you say that as though you didn't just say before, I'm just going to enjoy this one. I feel like your rooting interests still surface at some point
it's
here.
When you came at me about July 2nd and Joe Adams and all that. Yeah.
See, but if a person who was truly neutral would have just been I don't care, I'm neutral.
Well, I can easily be pushed either way.
The neutral planet in Futurama doesn't suddenly get emotional, my friend. They stay neutral no matter what.
I will leap across this table.
Tell my wife I said hello.
Thank you to FBref.com sponsoring today's show. The link will be in the show notes. We also recommend signing up for StatHead, the daily newsletter. You get stats straight to your inbox.
We certainly do. Thank you to FBref. Now let's talk Curacao, shall we?
Let's talk Curacao. Okay, so the US is playing Curacao Sunday night, Gold Cup quarterfinal. We will, of course, be reviewing that game.
We will?
Yeah.
Do we do that?
Is that news to you?
All right, that's fine.
We'll do that. Here's my big picture Curacao thing. They're better than you think.
Yep.
You probably don't think... You think of them as minnows because in the past, they have been CONCACAF minnows, right? But something changed, right?
Let's talk about it.
In 2010... they became an independent nation. They're part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, but they're an independent nation, which means they can try and qualify for the World Cup.
So many more countries have kings than I realize have kings, and it still throws me off to this day.
So Curacao have made a change recently, but it makes them a more viable nation to play for, football team to play for, if you are a Dutch player with Curacao heritage or citizenship or any links to Curacao. In the past, you might have thought, I don't really want to do that. They're not a proper team. They can't even get to the World Cup. Like, what's the point? Suddenly, I think a lot of players can start thinking, oh, okay, I'm not going to make the Dutch national team, but I'm like this mid-table Eredivisie player. I could play for Curacao if you've got the heritage and the links.
Do you know who had that exact idea?
Who's that?
Roughly half of the Curacao team.
There we go. So suddenly, this is why I would classify Curacao as sort of the rising middle class of CONCACAF, right? They're never going to be as good as Mexico and the US, but they're not going to be minnows anymore. They're not Guyana anymore. They are going to be sort of, I think, literally a team that now makes the Gold Cup knockout rounds for the very first time. Then he scored their first Gold Cup goal this tournament. They were in the 2017 tournament. I guess they scored no goals. Made the quarterfinals this time. They're a team that I think could threaten to be, we probably don't do the Hex anymore because we're going to change qualifying, but could threaten to be towards the final stages of World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF. So that's my big picture, like, take them seriously, because even though you sort of have never heard of them and don't really think about them, this is a decent CONCACAF team at this point.
It's also sort of like misleading because we played a very weak Trinidad team. Worth noting, they finished bottom of the table. Guyana beat them because of goal difference.
But not like a Trinidad B team. That was the best they could put out.
I know.
Right?
And then we also played the Panama B team because they made so many changes. But I say all that just to say that if you look at the U.S. in the Gold Cup right now, it's like, oh, they beat Panama, they beat Trinidad, like Curacao. Who cares about this team? Like they're just some tiny country. Which is true, but it's also the case that they're a tiny country with much more talent than I think any of the other teams we've faced so far.
Yes. All right, so maybe a couple of players to spotlight would be Cuco Martina, who has played for, who did he play for in the Premier League? Southampton.
And Everton.
And is now at Feyenoord in the Eredivisie.
He's also their captain.
I think he's one of those guys who... He might be their best player because he's a right back normally when he plays. When he played in the Premier League, he's a right back. I'm assuming for Feyenoord, he's a right back. For Curacao, he's a centre back, which very much says like, hey, you're our best defender. Please play centre back.
Yes.
And still wear number 2.
Yes.
But you see Martina playing centre back, and you're talking about a top flight Eredivisie footballer. And I would ask you, outside of the US and Mexico, which other teams in the Gold Cup have top-flight Eredivisie footballers with Premier League experience playing centre-back?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a lot of them is the answer for Curacao, at least, because Eloy Room is their goalkeeper, had some really great saves, specifically against Jamaica, but like basically in every single group stage game, he pulls off at least one big save. Yeah. He is the reserve goalkeeper for PSV, which is, when you start to look at it from that perspective, no. I mean, you've got, and then you lose some of like the big-name teams aside from the two that we've mentioned in Feyenoord and PSV in the Eredivisie, but then it's a lot of this team finished 8th in the Eredivisie, this team finished 10th, like this team finished 14th. Yeah, I mean, you've got a lot of that level, which in some ways you could say is like, ooh, hold on now, like this team maybe rivals some of the US players in terms of their sort of like the reputation of the club.
Yeah, and also it's worth noting one important player to keep an eye on will be number 10, Bacuna.
Yeah.
Bacuna has played for Aston Villa, I believe, in the Premier League. I think he's currently with Cardiff City. So that means he played a season in the Premier League, just gone. Curacao are going to play either a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3.
My guess is 4-2-3-1.
Okay, but either way, Bacuna will be the central midfielder that they look to give the ball to each time, right? He's going to be the guy looking to receive the ball and make things happen through their midfield.
And then Michael Maria, number 6.
Charlotte Independence.
Yeah. I'm guessing that's who will sit alongside him and be the sort of like the midfield pairing.
But that is the perfect maybe distillation of what this Curacao team is, right? There are guys from the Premier League, guys from the Eredivisie, and guys from the USL Championship, right?
Yes.
So it is, and guys from, I don't think they'll start, but guys who play locally in Curacao, right? So it's a bit of a mix, but there's a lot of high-profile players.
Yeah, I can keep it going because I would add Elsen Hui. I think it's a whole bunch of Hui.
Yeah,
he starts. 14 starts, 21 appearances last season for ADO Den Haag again.
Top flight Eredivisie, right?
I think he did that. Yeah, as a wide, like a winger for them. For Curacao, I'd expect him to be more of the number 10 in that 4-2-3-1.
Okay,
so it's just like you've got this combination of like experienced European-based players with young players coming through who I'm assuming are doing well for Charlotte. I don't know. I have not followed them, but I'm guessing that he's doing all right.
Who's the striker you mentioned earlier? You mentioned it during the
Arias?
FB ref. Arias, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you much more aside from that. Like I think because he isn't a front and center striker for FC Emmen, he's more of an assist getter. Had 4 goals last season, but not quite as many as you would expect.
I'm going to guess wide forward.
For Emmen, yes, but for Curacao, who will probably be the central striker.
Okay,
and then I forget who flanks him, but again, it's sort of. not like high-level players, but it's players that should be slightly disconcerting for American fans in the sense that we should not overlook and expect, more to the point, we should not expect Curacao, I think, to be this defensively bunkered, sort of sitting back and frustrating.
So I'd heard that about them, but then we watched some footage and they seemed quite open. My guess is that they'll shift back and forth. They'll either start in a 4-3-3/4-2-3-1.
Yeah.
That's their attacking shape. And maybe if the US has possession, then that Curacao will maybe collapse into a sort of 4-5-1 looking thing.
Yes.
That feel about right?
That feels about right.
But I don't think they'll be like on the edge of their own box with everybody. It won't be that kind of bunker. I think it'll be more like a mid-block 4-5-1 where the striker is at the halfway line and the midfielders are just behind him. Yeah, that feel about right?
It does, and I would double down on that and say it also feels like there will be many opportunities for the United States because we saw, again, in pretty much every single group stage game, there's at least one or two plays for the Curacao defense where they end up, was it Martina? I think you spotted turning on and being like, guys, calm down. It's just kicks that don't need to happen, clearances that don't need to happen, two players going for the same ball at the same time and running into each other and the ball springing loose. There will be opportunities for the United States, and I think going back to our Panama review where we kind of went in depth on the way you watch the U.S. and some of the patterns that you like to look for.
Oh, yeah. Can I just quickly recommend that? Because I'm really aware. It actually got good downloads, but I'm aware there are people who decided to skip the US-Panama game and review because they were really annoyed about the B-team stuff. If you did that, Taylor and I sort of accidentally had this really big picture conversation about the Berhalter era. And we talked out some disagreements and really tunneled into a lot of really interesting stuff, I think. Yeah. And we ended up sort of enumerating the Berhalter style of play and how to watch it and what to watch for. It starts around the 33rd minute of our USA versus Panama review. I really would recommend go back and listen to that if you decided to skip it.
Yes, I think people should, and I think they should because this game, I don't want to be overconfident. There's always a chance the United States loses or doesn't look very good, or Curacao do end up bunkering and it finishes 1-0. But I also think there's a very good chance the U.S. wins this game 3 or 4-0, and then the kind of common response to that is like, well, yeah, it's Curacao, of course. You should have beaten them 6-0. And in reality, as we've already talked about, they are a better team, at least on paper, and thus far in the tournament than you would have expected.
Premier League and Eredivisie players.
But it's a team that can be, I think, pulled out by smart runs and players making feints and decoy runs. And so
players opening up space for other players. Yeah. That's the very basis of the Berhalter thing.
And so I honestly, I don't know if I'm just hyped by that conversation we had and by looking at it from a different perspective, but I feel like there's a chance that this game becomes like the Greggyball, as we've come to call it, like thesis statement of you watch this game and you see just Curacao pulled out by this run, and then another attacker makes another, Josie Altidore makes a run into the channel, and one defender follows him, and then Weston McKinney makes another run through, and that pulls somebody else out, and then there's a wide open space, and then it looks, if you just watch the quick highlights, of they were just wide open. They're ridiculous, but it's because of the kind of runs and the patterns of play the United States have established so far.
Yes, if I was Curacao, I'd be working on not trying to fall for that, and just I think the way to play against the Berhalter system is to maintain your shape and don't be pulled by runs, almost like zonal mark the whole field and don't let people distract you and pull you out of position. Yeah. We'll see if that's what Curacao go with.
And let's see what we think the United States is going to go with, which I'm guessing is basically the same team we saw in the first 2 games of the Gold Cup, and then maybe Josie Altidore depending on fitness.
I think that's right. I think we've learned that despite Miazga's good performance against Panama B, it seems that Berhalter favours Zimmerman and Long. And I would argue Zimmerman's passing is at least as good as Miazga's coming out of the back, and Long's pace is maybe better than Miazga's. Maybe Zimmerman's recovery pace is better than Miazga's. So they just seem like the starting pair and the perfect pair. So no qualms about that. That's similar to this, right? So back to Reem at left back, back to Nick Lima as the, I'm going to guess, overlapping right back. So then Bradley, Pulisic, McKennie.
I think Mihailovic over Pulisic.
I don't think so. Tyler Boyd wide right.
I don't really think that. Please don't tweet at me.
Paul Arriola wide left. And then centre forward is the question, right? Because in the first 2 games it was Zardes, but Altidore was coming back from fitness. Altidore looked mostly fit against Panama. I think it's all going to depend on how he recovers from that game and how he's feeling and how he's looking maybe the day before. It's going to be a decision of... and don't take it as if Zardes starts, don't think, this means that Berhalter's just tied to Zardes forever and we'll never pick Altidore over Zardes. Right. It's going to be about Altidore's fitness. He's either good to go or he's not.
I think, again, our conversation informs this. Our conversation from the last show informs this. But I kind of genuinely don't care who starts. Because
really?
I would like to see Josie Altidore back because I think he is the best number 9 striking option the U.S. has when he's fit and ready to go. So if he's starting, then my assumption is that means he is fit, ready to go, and like well briefed on the system, but if he's not, then he's not. But it also means that Gyasi Zardes has plenty of experience playing this style and this system, and maybe we see a little bit more fluidity as a result.
Yeah, the one reason I hope it's Altidore is I feel like he's higher profile, especially in the Netherlands, right? He probably has a great reputation in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
he scored like 100 goals for Alkmaar in one season. It wasn't really, but it was like 30 or 40, right?
No, that was like 112. Pretty sure.
It was more than he scored for Hull or Sunderland.
We can go look on FBref if we need to.
But he had a great season for AZ, right?
Yep.
So they will be aware of Josie Altidore as a striker they need to watch.
Will they be though?
And what
it was a little bit of time ago.
What we saw in the highlights was a lot of Cuca Martina would, because he's the best and most high profile defender and he's the captain, would take responsibility for like the opposition's best striker,
right,
and kind of would follow them out and not trust anyone else to do the job. So what I think is maybe if it's Altidore, that will be an opportunity to pull Martina out of position, because he'll be like, all right, I'm watching this Josmir Volmi Altidore, going to keep an eye on him. That's a chance for Greggyball to be implemented by Altidore pulling him out.
You think he gives him all three names?
I mean, when he's in trouble.
Okay, all right.
Like my parents did to me.
There we go. Well, I'm saying, but are they on that level of like relationship that he's like he's calling full names? All right, I dig it. So that game is what time Sunday night?
I don't know. I was hoping you would know.
I know nothing.
That's because you don't have the internet in front of you, and I do. It is 8:00 Eastern. Saturday night. It's at Lincoln Financial Field, Philly. So
the Link.
That means Green Man will be there.
I believe that's how it works, yes. Although he may have been banned from the stadium. I'm not sure.
So 8:00 Eastern on Sunday night, USA versus Curacao, not Curacao.
All right. That's good to know. So yeah, we'll be back with a review of that one sometime tomorrow evening, potentially Monday morning, depending on how much we need to rewatch.
Yes. All right. Then it just remains to say, sorry, there's one more thing I want to get into, if you don't mind, if we've got time. It's about Christian Roldan, who we don't think will start this game, but could play a role. Do you remember we got into a whole thing of, why does he look so bad for the US national team? What is different between what he does for the US and what he does for Seattle? We got emails. We asked for emails. We got emails. Here's the thing. All the emails were friendly and polite. None of them were like, you guys suck. You should be nicer to Roldan. All of them said the same thing.
Which is?
Okay, so Austin Kovac, Jesse London, Joseph Meadows, Brendan Sweeney, Daniel Martini, all emailed. Thank you for the emails. Really informative. For the Seattle Sounders, Roldan plays in a 4-2-3-1 alongside a number 6, where he's the more mobile number 8 sitting deep. And the big difference is he's receiving the ball not with his back to goal.
Right.
And the problem is...
It's a weird thing to have to phrase, like he was receiving the ball with his front to goal? It's a tough way to explain it.
And he's arriving late when attacks happen, because he's not the deepest defensive midfielder. Is it Gustafsson? I've forgotten his name, the Swedish...
Gustav Svensson.
Svensson is the guy who actually stays defensive midfield, right? And he did a similar thing alongside Alonso. Roldan can join the attack slightly late because he's free to go eventually. So he's arriving late, again, facing goal.
Yep.
But what he's been asked to do when he's one of these 10s, when he gets forward in the Berhalter system, is essentially you end up getting in some space and you turn around and you're receiving with your back to goal and a defender in your back. And that's where we've seen him lose the ball multiple times, right? I can picture that in my head, many images of Roldan losing the ball in that situation. So he's essentially being asked to do a thing that he doesn't normally do. And that, I think we've got the Roldan explanation thanks to these great emails we got from Seattle fans.
So I did appreciate all those. I agree with everything that was said there. My question then becomes, though, like, where is the line on that, though? Because on the one hand, you're absolutely right that like he's a central midfielder who's used to getting the ball at his feet with the defense in front of him. He can go at them. He can make plays. You're right that when like now you're being asked to like play with like a defender on your back, you've got to turn, you've got to kind of distribute the ball, you've got to find ways to get through that. You're right that it's putting him in a different position, but at the same time, like, shouldn't he be able to handle that? Isn't that a thing that a professional should be able to sort of be like, oh, okay, it's this now? Okay, I'll practice that for a day, and I've got it under control.
And I'd double down on saying he should be able to do it with the job is half the same as Seattle. Because when we collapse into the defensive 4-4-2, he is next to the more defensive midfielder, probably Bradley. And so he's sort of playing the same-ish role when we're defending. It's only when he gets forward and that back-to-goal thing happens. So the answer is yes. Like, he basically just should be good enough to do it. He should... I don't know if it's a thing you can work on at that stage in his career, because he's already like mid to late 20s, right? It's not like he's some kid like Mihailovic who you can see there's room to grow. So...
Michael Jordan would tell you that there's always time to develop.
But he was very driven.
This is true.
So, I don't know. I think... Yes, he should get better at it, but we keep seeing the evidence that he's not. So eventually, maybe we just have to accept that even though he theoretically can do half the job right, that this when he goes forward and turns around, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm not even like saying it critically. It's just more of a like my instinct there was to say like, yeah, and that is really difficult. Back to goal, you've got to figure it out differently. And then I paused for a moment. I was like, yeah, but I'm not a professional soccer player.
Yeah,
like a pro should probably be able to figure that out after a couple of games. So we'll see if Christian Roldan gets the opportunity to do so, and what he does if he gets that opportunity.
I mean, we're one Weston McKennie injury away from him getting that opportunity.
Can we like double wrap Weston McKennie's legs and body and everything?
Yeah, he should play in bubble wrap.
Let's just put him in a full NFL like pad situation.
See what he might lose a little bit of pace.
That's fine.
And a little bit of jumping ability.
That's fine too.
Yeah. All right, so I will wrap up there.
Harder to get around though.
I wanted to make sure to share that. I kind of sprung that on you as well, right?
But, yeah, whatever.
So I will say very sincerely then, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today and listen to my Roldan segue.
I think you just wanted to make sure that we get as close as possible to an hour running time. And
How am I doing?
You weren't happy. We're about at 50 minutes, but you weren't.
I've got one more thing that takes about 10 minutes to talk about.
Anyway, right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you after the game. Sendina.